Okay, welcome to the fourth video when we're looking at market failure. We're now going to consider social benefits. Now, it's another type of market failure, and this is the whole issue of the provision of social benefits. We've previously considered social costs, where costs associated are not being charged to the company, but social costs are the opposite of social benefits, where the production is not being experienced by the company that's doing the production. Let's have a look at an example. So we have an example. A gym owner can make money by using a gym and charging members fees to use it. And we think about the costs associated with owning or running a gym. You might have to purchase a building or rent a building. You've got your equipment, your running costs, your staffing costs, your heating, your lighting and your cleaning. There is a value to the owner of the business because the owner is going to be receiving revenue via membership fees or other chargeables, and we assume the owner's in business and the revenues are higher than the costs. There is also, though, a social benefit because people become fitter. There's reduced healthcare costs, reduced stress and anxiety. And there's also benefits to you and me, because if people are getting much fitter, there's actually some of the costs are being reduced. So my taxes to the National Health Service, your taxes are actually going further because less money is having to be spent on healthcare costs. Now, the more people that use the gym, the better the social benefits are to society. So it's in society's interest to see more people using the gym that might normally do so. If we would look at this, the marginal costs curve, and we look here at the marginal cost, which is our blue curve, and our demand curve, and you see where we reach this equilibrium point of the quantity and the price. So very similar to actually looking at the supply and demand. But if we look at the red curve, and we could actually see the marginal cost plus the marginal social benefits. And actually you can see from this now that it's actually more efficient if the quantity provided actually increases, much more socially efficient, and we could see impacts of social benefits more if this happened. So in this case the quantity supplied of gym memberships is lower than the socially efficient level. And we want to see more people using gym memberships and more people going to the gym. And the free market actually fails to deliver the socially efficient level of supply at this price. And it occurs because the supplier does not own the source of the benefit and therefore does not take into account in their supply calculations. So in a similar way to social costs, there's a real need to try to encourage suppliers to supply more of the product, as it's to society's benefit to see a higher level of production of the gym membership. So the question is, what can be done? And there's two possible answers. Answer one, it could be to subsidise. So a subsidy might reduce the cost of production for the company. It may become more cheaper and more incentive to actually produce more. And this shifts the supply curve to the right. This brings the profit maximising quantity closer to the social optimum quantity, in similar but opposite way to tax interventions. And if we were to look at another example of childcare, if we consider childcare provision, governments historically offer subsidies to nursery places so there's more available. It's good for society as it enables more parents to go to work, which they wouldn't be able to do if the childcare wasn't available. So without the subsidy, some nurseries wouldn't have opened, or certainly wouldn't have been offering so many places. So it's socially beneficial to see more nursery places available, and one way of doing this is by subsidising or lowering the costs of production and staffing, and the shifts applied to the right. So the effects of this are at a given point the supplier is willing to provide more places, and therefore it brings in this higher price mechanism. It brings it closer to the socially optimum quantity, Very similar, but the opposite direction to tax intervention, which we discussed earlier. The second way is through government interfering via legislation. So we could be looking at regulation, and it might be possible to restrict the market by way of a monopoly or an oligopoly. The regulators can require companies to alter their activities or to amend their prices, particularly in private sector owned utilities. The BBC, for example, there's regulation which forces them to provide programmes which, if they were only acting in a free market, they wouldn't necessarily provide, or they may provide them but not actually have a sufficiently large audience to warrant their production or place in prime time TV. But because of regulation, they're obliged to produce these shows at specific times of the day, and an example of this would be Songs of Praise, which is prime time on a Sunday. Externalities. There's 4 types of externalities. So externalities are either the social costs or the social benefits resulting from the consumption or production of goods or services. So we have the social costs of production and the social costs of consumption, the social benefits of production and the social benefits of consumption. And there's impacts to shift the desired supply curves one way or the other by adding on these social costs or benefits. And we're going to be exploring this more in the seminar class.